Zoom this afternoon or evening, wherever you might be. I had the absolute great honor to meet Dr. Neil Goodman and his wonderful wife, Peggy, at the Pro5 Summit a couple of weeks ago. I was sitting down listening to one of our speakers, and I look over and I saw him and I recognized him because he is the doctor that I send out his webinar actually on this very informative Vitality Stack webinar, and he leads that. So after the speaker ended, I went up and introduced myself to him and his lovely wife. And over the weekend, I just came to find out that they are just truly the kindest and warmest people. And it was just such a great honor to meet both of them. A little bit about him. Dr. Goodman is a member of the Academy of Pediatrics, the Institute of Functional Medicine, and the Academy for Anti-Aging in Medicine. And he is here to explain and teach us a little bit more about NRF2 activation and nutrigenomics, and truly what we have our hands on. And what we have our hands on is truly a gift that we share with people. And I think hearing from him a little bit more will really, show that even more in depth. If there's time, we may open it up for some Q&A. We'll check the time. I know where he's calling in from. It's 10 p.m. And so, like I said, time is very special. So I'd like to hand it over to you, Dr. Goodman. Take it away. Thank you so much. We're so very blessed.
All right. Well, thank you, Kristen. Nice to see all of you guys in Hawaii, and welcome. I'm calling and Zooming in from Georgia, so we're about 6 hours time difference from you guys. Anyways, it was lovely to meet Kristen at the Pro5 Summit, as she mentioned, and it's really nice to network with everybody. And I was really happy to hear that she was sharing my video with everyone. I'm glad it had that kind of an impact on people. At the heart, I'm essentially an educator. I really originally didn't plan on getting involved in network marketing. It wasn't my thing. But I was a hardworking practicing pediatrician for 35 years, and I also teach medical students. So it's my pleasure to be able to break the science down and make it into a educational lecture that perhaps is a little more interesting and maybe a little more understandable, especially for lay people. So without further ado, Kristen, I'm going to go ahead and share my slide set and just walk through some of the slides. And it'll be a little different spin than what my talk is about. Many of you have seen that talk, and I talk about the Vitality Stack. Today, I'm really just going to focus on NRF2 and just cover it in the manner that I normally do, and maybe hit on a couple of points that might be little takeaways that you can take back to your downline distributors. So I'm going to share the screen. Hopefully you all see it soon. Okay, hopefully you're seeing it now. And I'm going to go ahead and flip to my next one. By the way, it says Science Presentation Hawaii, you guys. Got you on my slides. This is a modified slideshow that I did for a talk that was intentionally unbranded. There are many times where we'll talk in public, and we have to be careful of promoting a specific product. So I was really talking about the science. You will see where I put Protandim back in a couple of slides, but that wasn't originally how this slide show was conducted. And you're all familiar with the 4 core pillars of health, but I want to focus on oxygen here for a minute. And as you know, oxygen is our friend. We need it to breathe, and we need it to survive. But of course, oxygen is also very toxic in high concentrations. And the point that I try to make to my audiences that sort of gets everybody's attention is not only is it necessary for our life, but it's also the very thing that's actually killing us. And I repeat that because oxidation and oxidative stress is really a very significant thing. It's what's responsible for our aging. And so just like the incidents where, for example, oxygen has its effect on steel and metal and causes it to rust or corrode, it has similar effect on our cells, and it causes your cells to wrinkle, create cell damage. Gradually, you get inflammation as things start to break down. And then, as you know, this leads to aging, disease, and finally cell death. So the analogy of rust is very apropos here. And just like the flesh on this apple, after you leave it a half an hour exposed to air, it's going to turn brown like this. And that's going to be as a result of this exposure to oxygen and oxidation. So what causes that? What are free radicals after all? Well, free radicals are merely supercharged oxygen particles, okay? And they're generated by your normal cell metabolism every day, by every single one of your cells make free radicals. But they're also generated from our environment. Oxygen's interaction with UV light, smoking, radiation, pollution, they all ultimately combine to turn those oxygen particles into these very, very disruptive forces that affect our cells, both on the outside and on the inside. So the common denominator here is oxygen. That's what we're talking about. Our friend, but also our foe. And so we'll just refer to those free radicals as the bad guys. And really for your audiences, that's what you want to do. You want to talk about it in fairly simplistic terms. I'm not trying to blow everybody out of the water, but it's useful information as background to understand why this works and why NRF2 works. So what is the battle? The battle is between the free radicals, which you see on the right, and antioxidant particles. So basically what free radicals do is they steal electrons from, this is going back to science, everybody, but they steal electrons from everything that they touch. They literally rip holes in your cells by the millions, constantly, every single day, every single second, and all as a result of breathing in oxygen. And our only defense against this is the antioxidant particle. And what the antioxidant particle does is it donates an electron to that free radical so that it will satisfy it. And in doing so, it protects your cells. It protects them from being destroyed by those free radicals. Essentially, it acts like a scavenger. So that's the battle. So up to this point, what we've been relying on is secondary antioxidants. These are the things that we find in our food. Minerals, proteins, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, eating kale, eating broccoli. They all help to some extent, but they only yield one antioxidant molecule for every particle that you eat of that antioxidant food, and therefore they only get rid of one free radical. But in fact, we have so many more potent antioxidant potential in our body. If you look at the top of the triangle here, the ones that we were presented at birth, we were actually born with, we have them in these quantities. At the top of the heap is SOD, then you have catalase, and then you have glutathione peroxidase. These three internal primary antioxidants are our internal defense system that allow us to deal with the ravages of free radical damage from the moment that we're born, from the moment essentially that we've taken our first breath. So we want anything to do that can increase those. So food is one thing, but what you have in every single one of your cells is the most potent system for dealing with free radical damage. So those are your good guys. So, and I put the Superman symbol by it because, you know, you have a fight between good and evil, and, you know, Superman's good guy, right? So when the amount of free radicals exceeds our ability to neutralize them or scavenge them with these antioxidants, that's what the term oxidative stress relates to. It's merely an imbalance. And we know that oxidative stress is the cause of over 200 diseases and as a precursor for aging. So in my world, you know, what I've learned to do as a medical doctor and what I'm trained to do is to treat all these different organ systems. You know, we treat the lungs with the anti-asthma medicines, or we treat the brain. If you have ADHD, a patient might be placed on Ritalin. So that's the training that I've received. But really, if you think about it, maybe at the heart of all of it, inflammation and oxidative stress, if that's the cause for all those diseases, what we should be really doing is shrinking that and focusing on increasing the good guys, bringing them in to fight this battle. And we can do that by increasing the cellular production of our internal antioxidants, which are those three that I mentioned: SOD, catalase, and glutathione. Those are the ones that you need to know about. Okay, so, well, as I said, you know, your body is designed to make them, and the code for producing all of those is in your genes. And you have 23 pair of chromosomes, but really only 20% of your DNA is expressed. There's a whole science related to this. It's called epigenetics. Epigenetics basically says that the environment and or you yourself can change the expression of your genes. Okay, this is not in question. Everybody knows about this. This is common knowledge now. So your DNA is not your destiny. 80% of your DNA is dormant. It just sits there. It does nothing. It formed you, and then it did its job, and now it's at rest. So you can change the way that your genes are expressed, and that's basically what biohacking is. And that's why I'm so excited, because we've got a great tool at our hands where we can biohack. I mean, LifeVantage Corporation is at the leading frontier of the whole concept of biohacking. The other option is just to be hijacked. And we're hijacked every day by everything that we're exposed to. I told you before, the environmental pollutants and free radical damage and UV radiation and bad food choices. So biohacking is now your reality. Now, if you look closely at these 23 pairs of chromosomes, every single one of those horizontal lines going across is a gene. And those genes code for proteins and enzymes. That's how our body's constructed. So what are the proteins and enzymes that they do? Almost everything in your body, but especially with relation to what we're talking about, biohacking, the NRF2 protein and the NRF1 protein. They've been identified as our master regulators of our own cell protection. And they're amazingly important if we can turn them on and activate them through biohacking. All right, so these are numbers that you need to know. I mean, you should really know these numbers as a distributor by heart. Okay. First, you need to know that when you activate the NRF2 protein, that you can increase your SOD, superoxide dismutase, by 34%. You should know that rote, because you're going to repeat this information to your clients and PCs. It increases catalase by 54%. This is absolutely unheard of in the current world. There's no other mechanism to do this except for what we have in our hands right now. And lastly, glutathione, 300% in 120 days. Lots of people take glutathione injections. They ingest glutathione. None of it is lasting. It does not work. It helps people for a short time that have need for extra antioxidants. I mean, you talk to anybody who gets glutathione therapy, it really does improve their symptoms. But why inject it? Why eat it if you can make it? And that's what we're talking about. And when you make these products by increasing the activation of the NRF2 protein, you reduce your oxidative stress from free radical damage, as you know well by now, 40% in 30 days. It's absolutely pivotal information. All right, so that's the concept of nutrigenomics, basically how food is code for your bodies. Remember now, Protandim is a food, okay? It's an activator. It's not a vitamin. It's not a drug. We never refer to it as a drug. It is essentially a food product. We're using some ancient science that scientists have realized of the internal products that are in Protandim to utilize that in order to change our genetic expression. That's what's happening here. So if you think about it then, going back about antioxidants, if you use a direct antioxidant like on the left, fruits, vegetables, kale, blueberries, wine, what have you, it's like that Dixie cup that you see there. You're putting out a fire in a 1-to-1 ratio, very small ratio, because one molecule of an antioxidant scavenges one free radical. But when you do NRF2 activation, you are turning on 1 million scavenger particles. I mean, you can't even compare. Okay, this is how, and this is in every single one of your 37 trillion cells, all working simultaneously to do the same thing. It's like putting out the fire with a fire hose. And that's the difference between supplementation and activation. Okay, very important concept. All right, so what do we do it with? We do it with this guy, right? Protandim NRF2, absolutely fantastic product. So what's in it? You know, ashwagandha root, bacopa extract, green tea extract, milk thistle extract, and then turmeric. Now, you're seeing lots of stuff on TV lately. I'm sure you've seen it. You're starting to see all sorts of turmeric products and curcumin and coenzyme 10 and super beets and all these other things. I'm telling you, there are lots and lots of imitators out there competing for the market that you guys are in right now. But what you have in front of you is a peer-reviewed and scientifically tested product that has been actually shown to do what it says it does. And none of those other products have that. They're just food products, and they put it on, and they'll tell you that, the FDA, of course, the FDA statement, does not claim to cure, mitigate, or diagnose a condition. And we are in the same boat. However, we do have science behind us that shows that when you put these 5 ingredients together in a synergistic mix, which is what the patent was derived for, that you get an 1,800-fold acceleration of the joint NRF2 activation that occurs than if you did any one of those individually. And so therefore, it's the ratio that's important, and it's the scientific research that was done at PubMed.gov and published in multiple articles that shows how NRF2 and Protandim is able to activate this pathway. So that's the difference. So again, NRF2 Synergizer lowers your oxidative stress by an average of 40% in 30 days. It reduces cellular stress through NRF2 activation, induces enzymes capable of neutralizing more than 1 million free radicals in all of your cells at all times. And then the other interesting point that I want to make tonight that's a little different than my talk is what some people don't really talk about is, what is this thing about the survival genes? I didn't really understand that until I got down into the research. Those 3 things, SOD, catalase, and glutathione peroxidase, are only 3 of 400 survival genes that are being turned on or changed or activated. We only talked about 3. Those are the numbers I gave you, the 34%, the 54%, and the 300% for glutathione. Those are products or antioxidants that are produced by a specific gene. But we have 400 other genes that are also doing things, and that's what I'm going to show you now. So first, let me just say real quick, if you look at sulforaphane, which is the NRF2 activator that's present in broccoli and kale. This is the level that you achieve when you eat that. Okay, this is a direct antioxidant, the 1-to-1 ratio. Now look at the left. This is a drug produced by a drug company last year, came out for treating multiple sclerosis. It's called Tecfidera, and I want you to see the level that it attains. So it's about twice that of broccoli, okay? Folks, this is $50,000 a year for this drug, for people with multiple sclerosis to take it. Now, I want you to look at a failed drug, another drug trial that took place some years ago called bardoxolone, and you see it's a little bit almost as high as Tecfidera, okay? But lastly, look at this, guys. This is your Protandim. Is this amazing? I mean, this is twice as powerful as a $50,000 a year drug that is, in fact, researched and tested for multiple sclerosis, a specific disease entity. And here you have Protandim, not specific to any particular disease entity, but certainly lowers oxidative stress and activates the NRF2 pathway. And that's the degree that it does. It's unbelievable that you guys have this and have the ability to distribute it and get it to the public for $42. Unbelievable. All right, that's why I'm so excited about it. All right, so I want to show you that. The concept of the genes that I was getting to, about the 400 genes, this is really important. This is stuff that people don't, most people don't see this part of the lecture. If every single one of your genes had the ability to play a note, and you could graph those notes, this is what it would look like. It would look like this green bar graph. Nice and smooth, okay? Everybody sees the histogram there. It shows very nice frequency distribution of notes. Okay, now, this is what happens when the piano, the note playing, goes bad. Those notes are all over the place, up and down, and the notes sound pretty rough, and it doesn't sound very smooth anymore. So this is what Protandim does. This is 63 of the 43 genes other than SOD, catalase, and glutathione. And this is what your gene expression looks like when Protandim is not being used. This could be any one of our bodies at any point in our life after age 20. This is what the graph would look like. All right, now I want you to see that there are some of these that are low, and there are some of these that are highly expressed. The ones that are highly expressed cause things like metabolic syndrome. They cause things like calcium deposition in your arteries. These are genes that code for these problems. Now, what happens when you put Protandim in the mix and you remeasure them? Look at this. Look what this does. The ones that were high are brought down, and the ones that were low and underperforming are brought up. And now you see the gene expression of these other 400 genes playing smoothly like the young piano that it was, like your bodies were perhaps when you were before age 20, perhaps as a baby or as a child, before the genes started going bad because of abnormal expression due to aging. So that's the point I'm trying to make with Protandim. It has such powerful benefit besides just those 3 antioxidants. It affects so many other genes, and they're rarely talked about. And that's why the Washington State University said that we were on the verge of one of the most extraordinary therapeutic and preventative breakthroughs in the history of medicine. And it's true. And you guys have a lot to be proud of. And so I try to get this message out every day. I try not to overwhelm too many people, but you guys are the soldiers in this fight, okay? So anyways, Kristen, that's my talk about Protandim NRF2, and I just wanted to share that information with everybody. I hope it puts a little bit different spin on maybe some of the information that you've seen in some of the standard videos. If you have any questions about any of that or about my involvement in the LifeVantage company, I'm happy to entertain those.
Wow.
She shared her story with me and asked me if I would take it. And honestly, I had no reason to take it. There was no expectation on my part as to what this was or why I needed it. I did so though, because I wanted to be supportive of her. That was my only reason for taking Protandim. I wanted to show my unity with her. She'd been with me for 20 years, and she thought that maybe in some way I might get some benefit from it. I didn't know what benefit I was looking for. So I took it, and I took just Protandim NRF2 for about 3 months. And she just started saying that she thought that my stress level, my personal stress level, was much better, and that the way that I reacted to situations seemed to be more calm. So I accepted that as a positive sign, and I continued to take it. And then at that point, I went on to dual synergizer. This was all before the Vitality Stack became available. And I took dual synergizer probably for about 6 months, and I continued to do that. And then slowly and gradually noticed little changes. It was nothing earth-shaking for me. I saw more, to be honest with you, in our, we had a lot of patients that were kids in our practice that, whose parents were involved in the LifeVantage family in one way or another, either because of us or because of Debbie. And a lot of these kids had health problems. And in particular, some of the kids had problems with ADD, and they had kids with problems with autism. And I just noticed some really incredible things with those children, showing improvement in their overall condition. And again, we're not saying that we are treating or diagnosing or mitigating disease. It's very important to say that, because we are not a drug. But that was something that just made me question what was working here. Why was this working so well? What was I seeing? And made me get involved in the research aspect of it, just looking into it a little bit more in depth. And then as I continued to be in the LifeVantage family and learn more about it and get on the Vitality Stack, things just continued to accelerate for me. And to be honest with you, getting a little bit of a commission on the background to pay off my own personal habit, that wasn't a bad deal. So I really just did it so I could pay my own way. It turned into so much more than that. And it was just accelerated beyond my wildest imagination. I think we got out into the street and became a forum for talking about the science. Debbie and I became like this little dynamic duo, and we would just talk to groups of people and have our opportunity meetings. And more people came on board as testimonies became available from people who experienced life-altering changes. And that's what brought us to the point where I got to Pro 5 Summit to meet Kristen.